Good day and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before I begin, I'd like to ask everybody who has currently been giving me support to please comment, leave a like, comment, or subscribe to my channel. And if you don't like the content, leave a dislike and a comment to tell me where I'm going wrong. Okay, next thing on the agenda. Today's topic on the video is going to be the different types of fleets and their purposes, how to use them efficiently. Now, the first fleet that you can make is a PvP fleet. Now, the reason for a PvP fleet is you are going to make this fleet to take on other opponents within the game. So, your entire purpose in making this fleet is to fight other players. So, your fleet isn't going to run the exact same format as I said previously. Your support class is going to have the exact okay, all the classes are going to be the same except for the debuff class. In the debuff class, one of your commanders or both of your commanders will run a warp disruptor. Now, the reason for the warp disruptor is it prevents players from jumping. Now, most players don't use warp disruptors on their regular builds. The reason is quite simple. Running a warp disruptor takes up a low slot, and not a warp disruptor, sorry, uh, a warp stabilizer, sorry. The warp stabilizer negates the warp disruptor, and most people don't run it because it's inefficient in running it for PvE. The only time you're going to run it in PvE is if you're going up against a story mission or elite with a small number of players. When you're in your full fleet, you don't need to run away. You're actually using your fleet to get rid of anybody who debuffs you in such a way. So that's where everything comes into the whole standard. Now, when it comes to fighting in this way, when your PvP fleet jumps into any battle, you know your formation, you know where you're going to be, you know who's standing at which section. And once you are in, you fight heavy, you fight hard. The first place you go with a PvP fleet is the mining fields. You take out everybody who's mining to make sure that you're not going to get ambushed by a defensive line for miners. And that's what you're going to do first. Take out all the miners. Then you go and you take care of the rest of them in the location, in the area, in the sector. And make sure that you take a careful look on the count of players who are in your area. One moment, let me just give this message here. Okay, so now, as I said, with the PvP fleet, you need to make sure that you carefully choosing everything that you are doing. So you first take out your miners, then you take out the rest of the stragglers, and you have to keep a careful count on how many people are in the sector. So if you're going to go into a sector and you see that it's loaded with people, even though it's a 0.1, there's 30 people, there is no use in taking it on in PvP, because regardless of what you're going to do, you might end up in the mess of the most amount of people, hitting one person and opening your entire fleet to attack. Remember that opening a fleet to attack means that everybody can get in on you guys, and everyone isn't going to lock onto one player. So you can't use your PvP fleet to defend against such large numbers, because some areas, like if you had to go into I'm not sure of an area with such a large number in a PvP zone, but if you have to go into a PvP zone with a full fleet of ships, you're highly unlikely to find anybody taking you on that quickly, because most people know that they're going to get debuffed or blocked. And the one thing about the debuffs is a warp disruptor is negated by a warp stabilizer, and the stasis web of fire is negated by the afterburner, as you just saw me use it to negate the effect. And that's the way that everything runs in terms of order. Now, as you can see, I'm fighting this in the order of weakest to strongest. That's because I'm going solo. The less that I have to face off against, the easier it is for me. But when you're in large numbers, you normally try and take out the strongest first and go to the weakest. Because when you have the advantage, you can do it. You can take out what is more difficult before you go to what's easier. Okay, the next thing to talk about is the PvE fleets. PvE fleets work exactly how I described in shipbuilding. each part functions in exactly that format. There is no difference in the formats. There is no difference in what you're going to run in your debuff commanders. PvP debuff commanders will run Warp Disruptors. PvE commanders will run NOS, Energy Drain, and Weber Fires. Warp Disruptors make no difference to PvE fleet. And most PvE fleets aren't going to run the right equipment to take off Warp Disruptors. That's because it's impractical to use against most PvE enemies unless you're going up against a story mission with a very small fleet, like you're going in with 5 men. Then yes, you will need the warp stabilizers to make sure that you can get away. Okay, next thing to discuss in this whole matter is going to be, let's see, the next type of fleet that you get is the mining fleet. Now, the mining fleets come in 2 variations. You get the PvP mining fleet, which will be 5 attack ships and 5 mining ships. Now, your mining ships in this fleet are going to be larger capacity hulls. The reason is you are going to come through a sector, you are going to pick up all the loot that you can in the form of the ore which comes out from the ships that you are destroying. Because remember, ore fills up a lot more space than your regular loot. So running around with a fleet in this manner is the easiest way for you to get the best out of your formation. And that is a PvP mining fleet. Now, the reason I call it a PvP mining fleet is you are basically just a PvP fleet and you're using mining vessels to collect loot. But overall, you have a much bigger advantage. Once your hulls are full, you can instantly go to a station nearby, dock, refine everything, and you can keep going for the next and the next and the next. And eventually you can just leave it at a dock, come back later and pick up all of your loot at one go when you have refined materials. So there is the advantage within a PvP mining fleet. The next type of mining fleet is your standard mining fleet. Now, when you're going on these types of missions, you're going into the PvP zones. So what your mining fleet is going to do is they're going to take 2 attack class ships. They're not going to take glass cannon, they're not going to take defensive ships, because you need them to hit and get opponents away, and you need them to be able to take hits so that they don't get blown out immediately. Now, what you are going to do is you are going to be stationed wherever your entire fleet is mining. Everybody mines in the exact same asteroid belt. Even if it means that 3 people or 4 people are on one asteroid, or if everybody farms an asteroid at one go. So basically, while all this is happening, the 2 who are there are just there on security. Everybody in your mining fleet must deploy drones, and the drones basically form a nice defensive line. The next thing for you to do is to make sure that your settings are set correctly in battle. In your battle settings, you go down to the bottom, you click on your auto attack, auto tracking, and auto lockback, and auto warp alert. Now, what that does for you is it gives you a full range of visibility and capability in that fight. Whoever is in charge of the fleet is going to be one of your 2 defensive commanders. And the moment someone comes in, they automatically lock on and you attack. You don't give it any choice when it comes to this form of fleeting. Whether it is another mining vessel, whether it is anybody else, you take them out. Because if you're running a mining fleet for PvP, you are going to send your mining vessel to scout the area to see who's there. And then you're going to pull in your attack fleet, take out everybody, and the remainder of your mining vessels are going to come in. That first one to come in is generally the weakest or the smallest ore hull. So you take them out, and the rest of the fleet will either back away immediately or they will consider not coming in to that area, even if it is the exact same type fleet that you are running. So that is the benefits of running different types of fleets and the different ways in which you can run fleets. Now, this is an overview on it. There are more complex things within fleeting, there are more complex things within the game. And as we go on, I am going to go back through my fleet ship building videos and come up with the topics that I said I was going to carry out after the main topic. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you all. Have a good day.